Well, hi everyone. This is Peter. Today we're going to talk about test equipment. Uh, this is what you're going to see here are some photos of some of my test equipment that I've used over the years. I've had a radio shop in one way, manner or another for some 40 odd years. It's uh, it's one of those things. I just have had test equipment forever. I had a radio shop in one manner or another for all these years. This particular one is downstairs in my basement. I don't really do commercial work with it. It's pretty much all hobby related. So you've seen some of my videos. I work on a lot of different gear. I work on very, very old stuff. 100-plus-year-old Victrolas up to 1920s and 30s receivers, and transmitters, and just lots of stuff. Music amplifiers. In fact, I've got a Fender about to put on the bench after I finish a solid state transceiver. So I always have lots of little stuff going on, and again, this is all mostly my hobby. I have an actual business that keeps me pretty busy too. But I did want to put up a quick video here and go over some of the things that I do. So let's take a look at what we have here. So the first one we want to look at is on the left is the Simpson 260, and on the right is a Fluke. I call it my bench DVM. I've had so both of these are really important meters, and I use them both extensively. I primarily use the Simpson for testing semiconductors. For example, if I want to ohm out transistors or diodes, I find the Simpson 260 to be very useful in that regard, whether it's standard bipolar semiconductors or FETs, or any of the transistors and nearly all the diodes. Very effective. I will tend to use it if I'm looking at something that varies a lot. Digital meters tend to have trouble tracking, and it's difficult to determine what's going on. And so sometimes I do that. And sometimes that might be a DC power supply. That I know has got some sort of issues. So the Fluke digital voltmeter, I use that also quite extensively, particularly on taking voltages around stages, whether it's vacuum tube or solid state. Again, very, very useful. It's got a high impedance compared to the 260, so you can use it in RF stages without affecting things usually too badly, much like an oscilloscope. So I find myself that I highly use both of these, and they both, like I mentioned, they both have their uses. Next up is an oscilloscope. Again, I use this oscilloscope quite frequently, especially if we're tracking audio or if we're looking at receiver stages. It's not that critical to, if you work on radio. It depends on what kind of radio you're working on. VHF, UHF, and so forth. You probably want to have maybe I think this one's a 100 megahertz scope, which is fine for me. I seldom ever need anything more than that. So I'm perfectly happy with a 100 meg scope. They're reasonably inexpensive. They're relatively easy to operate. This is not a storage oscilloscope. Again, I really tend to prefer to go with something simple. So the old KISS formula works very well for me. So that for me in troubleshooting is a big deal. That's a good thing to have. They're not very expensive. You can get a 20 megahertz oscope for cheap money, and that'll get you going if you just want to get set up with a basic oscilloscope. So uh, test leads for them are readily available. They're all BNC types. They're readily available out there on eBay and all over the place. I usually keep a spare on hand at all time because once in a while I use it so often they wear out. That's the story on the oscope. The other one on the right is a capacitance meter. I actually have several of them. I bet I have 3 or 4 of them, I think, and they all maybe operate a little bit different. This Ultronics unit I've had for quite a number of years, and it's a great unit. I've used it a long time. It does have limitations. You can't go over I don't know, 10 microfarad or whatever it is. It's so I have got other ones that will measure capacitance and inductance, because that's the other thing it measures. The other parameter it measures is inductance. So again, it's somewhat limited, and I have other devices. I've built a leakage test unit. I think I posted something on this channel about that. If I didn't, I probably will later. Let's see what else. I've got a VOM that I use that can measure significantly higher values. What else I've got? Okay, ESR meters. ESR meters, again, very useful, especially obviously with if you're familiar with ESR meters, especially with electrolytic capacitors. So they can really tell you a story whether the electrolytic capacitor is having troubles or not. So, moving on, the one on the right is a high voltage power supply. This actually was given to me by my old friend Barney, NX1A, call sign NX1A, and Barney was a bit of a Barney passed away, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago. Was a very accomplished ham radio operator, highly technical, was an engineer, and knew his stuff. He had a plethora of parts in his basement, which a lot of us hams in the area called Barney's basement. And there was 2 things. One, he probably had the part if you're looking for vintage gear. And the second thing is he was also very technically astute and could help, especially maybe if I was struggling with something. So I miss Barney, but this came from him. It's a high voltage power supply. It goes up to about 500 volts DC. And very useful for when I need one. I use that, for example, for testing the leakage in capacitors. Very useful there, because then I can run it right up to the rating of the capacitor. For example, a 450 volt rated capacitor, I can actually test the leakage there and get a good idea what's going on with that capacitor. So, the one on the left is a nano VNA. That is my newest piece of test equipment. I've had that for a couple of years now. It took me a while to really get to it, and I think mostly because I didn't completely understand the functionality of them. And so I really ordered one without really completely understanding it. And as I started playing with it and realized what all its functions it did, I went, "Oh my God, this thing is amazing! Absolutely amazing!" It was invented by actually a couple of hams. And everything they did was open source, so it's these things just keep getting better and better and better. And I know there's some nano spectrum analyzers out there and so forth. So I actually had a nice HP spectrum analyzer with a tracking generator, and honest to God, I can do everything that I could do with this thing. So. So it's really impressive. Now I did order this one with the end connectors on it. It was a little bit more money, and it's the larger. It was a larger VNA, meaning it's like, I don't know, 4 inches or something. The screen's like 4 inches. Uh, so the reason why I went with the end connectors is because I have a gazillion end connectors. You know, all the adapters you could possibly ever want. So that was the reason why I did that, and you can see here, if you look at it close enough, that I was testing a filter. In this case, it was a crystal filter, and it was, I think this is the one that I tested, the crystal filter. It was dead on accurate. This thing is really impressive. So there's lots of Google videos out there on how to use them, but you know, I use it primarily for testing filters, for LC circuits, for really just involving most RF circuits. Of course, it's an excellent antenna analyzer too. So boy, you can't lose these things. Lose on these things. They're like, I think I paid about $120 for this thing, which is really amazing for what it does. So there you go. So highly recommend it. Again, there's some good Google videos out there and how to use them, and can't say enough about them. Next up, a couple more pieces of test equipment I use. That's a Western, I think it's a 981 tube tester. Again, I work on a lot of vacuum tube equipment. This is a transconductance type versus the emission type, which in my opinion is a little bit more useful. I consider this to be one of the very top tube testers that are out there. It tests, most importantly, it tests for leakages too. So it can test pretty good sized tubes too. 6146s, even some some of the smaller power tubes that you see in transmitters. So very, very useful. It'll test about any diode out there. It'll test just about any type of tube. From some of the earliest 4-pins and 5-pin sockets to the 8-pin octals, and then out into some of the newer versions, such as the miniature tubes, and even beyond to some of the later stuff. So I can't say enough about that tube tester. Again, I've had that for a lot of years. Pretty cool. Guess what? That's not the IFR 1200 service monitor. That's a screw up. So anyway, that's the 981 tube tester. I had goofed that up, but that's all right. So, and then the one on the right is a clamp meter, and I use that quite extensively. I actually put a video out on that. If you look at it closely, you can see a coil of wire going around there. So what I do is when I fire up a piece of equipment, I turn on that clamp meter, and the wire reads 10 times the. It's like it zooms in at 10 times the current of what it actually is. Well, this puts it into the range of the meter that it can more accurately read. So again, I put a video out on that, and you can look at it. So there you go. And then let's go to the next one. So, well, actually, this is the IFR 1200 service monitor. This is my most expensive piece of test equipment, without any doubt. I've had a service monitor in my shops for years and years, even when I had the commercial shops. I've had Cushman's, I've had a couple of IFRs. The 1200 is, in my opinion, probably the greatest service monitor that's ever made. There's tons of them out there. They're out there at very reasonable prices. You can't say enough about it. What's a service monitor? A service monitor has got a lot of different functions in it. There's a watt meter in it. There's a signal generator in it. There's an oscilloscope in it, and everything is interfaced. So you can look at a so it's got a receiver in it, so you can actually look at it'll decode the transmission, so you can look at the audio of the transmission, whether it's AM, FM, or single sideband, CW, you name it, it'll decode it. It's and the watt meter is very accurate. I've tested the accuracy on it. It's dead on. So there you go. There go. By the way, there go the dogs. So that's the story on that. I hope everybody likes what they saw here. It's any questions? Put some comments on the on the video here, and let me know what you think. Maybe you've got other pieces of test equipment that you happen to like and prefer. Now I've got a lot more than that, but that's pretty well the basics that I use. So I hope you like it. Like I said, make some comments. Subscribe to the video. Subscribe to the my channel too. That would probably help down the road. I can bring more interesting YouTube videos involving radio and electronics. So thank you for stopping by, and have a good day.